I noticed that your ashrams, Louis, are often located in the midst of suburbia, and many of the disciples and devotees who live there have paid employment outside of the ashram. This is quite different from many, if not most, other ashrams that are remote from cities, where often the followers are not holding paid jobs while they are attending or living at the ashram. What is the reasoning behind your style of ashram living? That's a good question and a fair one. A couple of things. First and foremost, my style of training in self-mastery is very different and unique from what most masters do and what most ashrams do. Most spiritual training, we'll call it, is fairly solely focused on meditation and scripture, learning sacred writings and texts, and learning different meditation tools. And mine does include that as well. However, the way I see mastery and the way I was trained and the way I train people is in what I describe as a whole being mastery. I don't just want to develop the mind, and I don't just want to develop meditative practices in people, because we live in a world where we engage on so many different levels with so many different people. Now, if you're going to be a recluse and live in a cave and not have a job and not have anyone in your life, then you can get lost, if you like, in meditation and introspection and just being alone with your thoughts and all of that, if there's virtually zero outer life. But we're only talking about a handful of people on the entire planet who actually live that. And to them, I say, more power to you. However, if you're not that, and I'm talking about 99.999% of the people who pursue spirituality don't have that set up. So they have either families or roommates or jobs, or at some point, even if they're off doing intense isolation spiritual training, they're going to come back to the world in some way, shape, or form. And so the way I see life in the world and the way God sees it through my eyes is that why not train people to become masterful in all areas of their life? To teach people about proper nutrition, to teach people about manners and posture and dress and color and nutrition and geography and English and grammar, diction and social etiquette, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Health, proper speech, social interaction, public speaking, exercise, all areas of life. Why? Because you're a whole being. And if you're living on the planet in any semblance of life integrated on some level in society and civilization, then you need and use all those categories I listed and more. So to develop just meditation or study of scripture is not bringing you to full mastery. It might be the potential to bring you to mastery in those categories. But what about all these other categories in your life? So my training is a whole being type of training, and I do train people in all those areas and more. Now, one of the things that supports that is having people to train people in employment and occupation, as well as selfless service, charitable contribution, reciprocity, etc. That's very, very important. And another reason for that is I've traveled all over India, where most of the ashrams reside. And in my experience, doing this for over 20 years, not just in India, but elsewhere too, I find overwhelmingly more than probably 50% or more of people who go to and live in ashrams are going there to escape and run from their lives. They just want to find somewhere where they can feel nurtured and avoid life and civilization. And then, of course, they are also interested in spirituality and meditation. But a lot of people are runaways from the world. And I don't allow that in my ashrams. When I find people going in that direction, they will find themselves in very short order reaching an impasse, and virtually they can't even sustain themselves without my even having to ask them to leave, because that's not what I do. I'm not here to to help people hide from the world or escape from the world. I'm here to help people master the world and master the human experiment called life on Earth. And so those are some of the reasons why people are most all, if not all, gainfully employed. And that's why the ashrams also are integrated in society. We have had, your question doesn't state this, but we have had ashrams, one in particular and possibly two, that were very, very remote, cut off from society. One completely and one so-so. So I have had those models too, but the same thing is true. I don't allow people to live in them just to hide or escape. And because they're not really they're being served on some level, but not at the highest level. And I don't want to be an accomplice to avoidance and escapism and all of that, because it really, when it all boils down to it, it does not further evolution. It does not bring one closer to mastery, and it doesn't bring one into a deep union and communion with the divine in the way they could, or in a way that fulfills a human potential, let's put it that way. Of course, there could be communion, but levels of mastery, of true mastery, cannot really be attained by ones who have a motive of escape. And again, let me go back to my earlier statement. I'm not saying all people in ashrams do that. There are plenty who are there for all the right reasons and doing all the right things and attaining great levels of mastery. Alrighty, so I hope that helps flesh things out a little bit. Thank you for your question.